Welcome to the CinemaMen podcast. I'm your host, John Murphy, and I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Hurdle. Get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty Hurdle.
He spoke. Okay, that's all I got. You know, all of these intros are not going to be winners, folks.
That'll be good after I fix it in post.
You have to put a few Indiana Jones punches. Maybe a few whip cracks. Yeah, we can make it work.
Harder for me.
I'm sorry. You do what you want to do. You are the editor. I'm the idea guy.
You're the idea man.
Which is an easy way of saying I don't do anything.
On tonight's episode, we are going to be reviewing the 1968 sci-fi adventure film Planet of the Apes, starring Charlton and Roddy McDowall, directed by Franklin J. Schaffner.
Oh, Schaffner.
Not to be confused with William Schaffner.
That's right. Watch out. William Schaffner is climbing a mountain. Why is he climbing a mountain?
To get away from the apes. If this is your first time joining us, what we typically do is start off with a review and discussion of the film. We follow that up with the Spice Awards, awards that we give out to recognize significant portions of the film. We wrap up with Did You Know?, a section in which we go through some interesting facts about the movie we found on the internet. This is a spoiler podcast, so if you've never seen the movie, particularly this one, and you don't want to be spoiled, pause this, go watch the movie, and then come back.
Or log off of the live stream and watch the volume.
Or log off of the live stream on our twitch.tv/meowsgrade.
For now, this is temporary only.
Temporary home of the CinemaMen live stream. Stay tuned until the end of the episode where we reveal what our next movie will be so you can follow along with us. If you want to get in touch with us or want to give us your take on a movie, feel free to email us at feedback@cinemamenpodcast.com or check us out on Twitter at twitter.com/cinemamenpod.
Boom.
We also love money. And if you'd like to give us some, you can go to anchor.fm/cinemamenpodcast/support. We don't use that money willy-nilly. We use it to improve the quality of the podcast. So in advance, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's get started.
All right.
The plot synopsis from imdb.com is: an astronaut crew crash lands on a planet in the distant future where intelligent talking apes are the dominant species and humans are the oppressed and enslaved. I'd like to go first.
All right. We have a rarity in which John wishes to go first. Yes.
Just mixing it up a little.
I like it when you go first. Hit me with what you got. Hit me with the hot take.
So, I like the movie. Does it have flaws? For sure. I think it does. But it's pretty entertaining. It's almost and for reasons we'll explain later, it's almost like a Twilight Zone episode that they then expanded into a, is it 2 hours? 2 hour movie?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a look at what would happen if the ape-human roles were reversed. To me, the answer to that question is that the movie poses is it doesn't matter if humans rule or some other human-like race. The problem is always the same. There will be ignorance and there will be war. I think the premise is interesting. Charlton Heston is Looney Tunes insane in this movie. And I loved him for that. He produces some of the most memorable lines in movie history, in my opinion. The rest of the cast is alright. Notably, Maurice Evans, who plays Dr. Zaius, and Kim Hunter, who plays Zira. They are pretty good. I I can't imagine what it was like to act in those prosthetic ape costumes, but just add on to that, and I mean, they had to probably they probably struggled in their acting with it. And of course, this movie has a extremely twisty ending, and which is why I said up front that you probably want to avoid spoilers if you've never seen this movie and you don't know anything about it, which would be difficult, I think. But I think it's a pretty big twist ending. The effects are okay. Again, the ape costumes were decent, but there's a serious problem there with the mouth movements. And they had they had the apes kiss each other, and that just looked like they were smushing their masks together.
I mean, what are you gonna do, right?
Yeah, it's 1968, but I should preface, I'm in the nitpick area now. Action was so-so. There were a lot of times that Charlton Heston would like kick somebody or push somebody, and it was really overreacted. The result, like he would barely kick somebody and they'd go flying across the screen.
Yeah.
But that happens in a lot of the older films, so I gave it a pass. And there's one decision that this movie made that didn't make a whole lot of sense, and we'll talk about it later. But I just want to.
You gonna leave me hanging like that?
Yeah. Well, we gotta have stuff to talk about in our breakdown. But overall, I thought it was good. An iconic movie, and an iconic Heston performance for sure. Hot take. So, what did you think, Matt?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I had never seen this movie before. This was the very first time I'd ever seen it. Regardless of that, I knew the ending pretty much because it's been parodied and talked about, and it's really hard to not know what the ending of this movie is. So I did. So that wasn't a surprise for me. However, the rest of the movie was. Honestly, I thought this was going to be hokey and boring and just not entertaining at all. And I was pleasantly surprised to find out that wasn't the case, with an exception. That exception being the first maybe 10, 20 minutes of the movie. Not even 20, maybe 10 minutes. The first 10 minutes are pretty terrible. They're in space. You've got this weird monologue from Taylor, who is Charlton Heston's character. They go into sleep. They wake up. One of the scientists is dead. They crash on a planet. And they get off and they find out that they've been in space for like 2,000, 3,000 years longer than they were supposed to be. And they land, and two of the crew members are just like, I can't believe it. Everything. What do you mean? And Charlton Heston's just like, ha ha ha, that's right. Everything you loved is gone. 2,000 years in the past. And he's really that goofy. And that didn't make any sense to me, and I thought it was stupid. And I was like, oh no, this movie's going to be bad. But then, thankfully, once they get off of the ship and they start walking and looking for civilization or what the heck they're going to do, everything gets way, way, way better. And I mean way better. After that initial weirdness in the beginning, I was hooked. I couldn't look away from the screen. I loved every second of it. The acting across the board I felt like was outstanding. The way that some of these actors were able to convey emotions while wearing full face makeup with basically only their eyes visible, everything else was prosthetic or made up, was just phenomenal to me. They really did some great acting given those limitations. And I gotta say, the makeup I thought looked awesome. Everybody's seen the masks. You've seen pictures of the old Planet of the Apes movies. And, given that this was the 60s, and that was all makeup, like, wow, I was super impressed. The way they talk and the way the mouth moved. And you didn't really see deterioration, which a lot of that was just reapplying the makeup over and over again. But still, a long scene, like a fight scene or something, where there's a lot of roughhousing, the masks stay right there and still look great, and the effects hold up. Yeah, I think even today they look great. Obviously it could be done a lot better now, but back then and to now, it holds up. It's like Jurassic Park. The dinosaurs still look amazing today. The music. I'm
talking about the music.
So I'm on the line on the music. The opening title music is weird. It's just a whole bunch of like somebody's banging on a keyboard chords, just burr, 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 and then like a theremin will be like woo, burr, and then you might get a drum going boom, 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 burr. Props for originality for it, but I wasn't feeling it.
Yeah.
I did go ahead and listen to the soundtrack apart from the movie. And doing so, I'm happy to say that the music's a lot better after that initial theme, I guess you'd call it. But all in all, not a huge fan of the score, which was Jerry Goldsmith, by the way, in one of his earlier roles. He wasn't super well known when he did the music for this.
Right.
Cinematography was okay. There were some real pretty shots, but I think the pretty shots were mostly the fault of the landscapes being pretty and not so much the camera work. There was a lot of... it looked like almost like hand camera work. Lots of shaky shots, jarring movements, and there were some scenes where, you were kind of obstructed by architecture and you had to, like, look around a corner and stuff. Kind of neat, but I wasn't digging it for this film. I wanted to see everything. So... average parts for the cinematography. The sets, I want to talk about set design because I thought they were outstanding across the board. The spaceship didn't look great, but whatever. It's in the movie for like 30 seconds. Everything else looked incredible. The houses that the monkeys built, apes built, the villages they lived in all looked amazing. The sets outside looked great. Just great work. You can tell a lot of work and a lot of love went into this film when it was made. So yep. I guess to wrap all this up, I didn't think I'd like this movie. I really expected for it to be boring and lame, and it was not at all. I loved it. I liked the themes it hit on. The twist ending still had a punch, even though I knew it was coming. The plot and the acting all had me just riveted to the screen, and this is one I could definitely watch multiple times. I really liked it, and I recommend it to anybody. I think it's great.
All right. So I was hoping that you would like it. I think probably what ended up happening is you like it more than I do, actually. I have some nitpicks with it. I don't think it's held up as well as you think it has. Mm-hmm. One of the things that you mentioned were the ape costumes.
Yeah.
And I think the prosthetics themselves, like most of what they did there, was fantastic, especially around the eyes, the hair, and all the like the clothes and everything. It was just the mouth, and it just took me out of the movie a little bit because it seemed like their mouths should be moving in a different way.
Yeah.
But it was almost like you could tell it was humans inside of a costume because you could almost see inside that little slit in their mouth and see their actual mouths moving.
Right.
And then they had to add in like the kissing scenes, and that just didn't.
The kissing scenes were weird.
Anything to it.
I agree. Yeah. They were super weird. But I guess what impressed me the most about the makeup and the masks is just the way they were able to emote through them. I expected them to be super stiff and unwieldy and not flexible. And I guess honestly, they probably did a whole lot of acting with just their eyes, which makes it even more impressive to me. But I guess that's what got me was their ability to portray all of these complex emotions through apes being a different species, through prosthetics and not really being able to use your mouth or your nose or much other than just your eyes and your expression on your eyes.
Yeah. No, I agree. They were definitely able to portray the emotions they needed to portray through makeup, which is always a difficult task, I would think. Despite my critique about the mouths, it it didn't take away from the acting jobs of the respective actors.
I agree.
I agree with you. The set design was fantastic. Like you talked about cinematography. I think the cinematography itself was just good enough. However, the set design, like the wide landscape shots of the desert, the interior of the ape civilization, even the scarecrows that were there before where the humans were at the beginning, I thought were good. But so should we talk about Rod Serling?
Rod Serling. Sure.
Yep. So Rod Serling, we mentioned it up front. Rod Serling is the creator of The Twilight Zone, and he actually was involved in this movie. And if you watch the movie, even if you didn't know Rod Serling was involved, you watch this movie, you'd probably automatically think, well, this is sort of like a Twilight Zone episode.
Especially
And
the ending.
sure.
The ending is
Yeah.
just almost, I mean, it is perfect Twilight Zone ending.
Yeah, for sure.
It was kind of cool, though.
Yeah.
I didn't know that until I did some research, after watching this film. And, finding that out, it really is very much like framed like a Twilight Zone episode. It feels a lot like it. The ending, like I said, in particular, but lots of other aspects of it as well.
To me, it's like this is sort of a knock on the movie, but it's sort of like they took a Twilight Zone episode and then they added some filler. They added a few action scenes. They added some walking in the desert. They added some padding, basically, to make it into a full-length feature movie.
See, I think I would go the other direction with that because I feel like most of that wasn't padding or filling. I think if you took the whole movie and you cut it down into a really compact package, then it would essentially put like a Rod Serling narration at the front of it, make it all black and white. I think it would feel like a Twilight Zone episode if you did that. But I don't necessarily want to say it's like we took a small episode and packed it full of filler, because I feel like all of that filler was really relevant and interesting and added to the story significantly.
So I thought, while I actually enjoy the upfront parts, the stuff in space and some of the stuff that the interactions between Landon and Taylor at the beginning, the scenes where they're just walking, like I guess you're supposed to get a sense that they've been walking for a long time. They're not finding anything. There's no life. I get it, but it went on a little long, I thought.
Yeah, like I said, the beginning of the movie was my least favorite part. I liked everything but the beginning. However, I think the reason that they did that and they drew it out was, this is spoiler podcast, everybody, so you've had your warnings. This land that they're walking over winds up being what used to be New York City and is now just a vast wasteland. And I think they're doing that to drive home just how bad mankind had screwed up in the past. Because, you're talking about one of the most thriving cities in the world, and it's nothing but a barren desert now. I think that's why they did that.
Oh, yeah, for certain. I guess, I don't know. Maybe my patience is running out. I don't know. But it just, like, I could have used about half of that, and I would have gotten it. Like I would have understood what they were trying to do.
It's also, I mean, if we want to get nitpicky, it's a little odd. You know, the iconic scene at the end where they walking along the beach and they see the Statue of Liberty. You know, supposedly we're in New York because we see that statue, but we don't know that. I mean, the statue could have been moved or something in the future. Sure. But it's a little unbelievable. Well, I mean, we're talking about a movie where apes are, speaking English.
No,
but
it could happen.
You know, it's a little unbelievable that the Statue of Liberty is the only thing from New York City that survived. Do you know what I mean? You would think there would be wreckages of steel buildings and things like that. But no, there's just a cave with a doll and a pacemaker and the Statue of Liberty, and that's all we got. You know.
What luck! They just happened to land to be riding down the right beach.
Yeah,
to find
Lady Liberty. Be too that like the level of the land has gone up. You know, because the Statue of Liberty is half buried, so maybe most of the city's under the dirt, and if you dig, you would find it. But even then, the skyscrapers are taller than the Statue of Liberty, so it is what it is.
Building tops and stuff.
It's 60s science fiction. You kind of have to not be that critical.
Yep. And then the parts where he's trying to escape from the apes, it just didn't do it for me. Like at every turn he ends up almost getting caught, and then by some flub or lucky moment he gets out of it.
Yeah.
Like they've got him caught, and whoops, the net goes over his body, and he's running again. He's running again. They push him. And he just to fall, and there's no one there. Yeah. And so he keeps running. It was just a series of like really lucky moments for him, and I thought they could have taken a lot of that out.
I thought it was cool. It did run a little over long, but I think the reason I liked it is the whole time that was going on, I was flipping the scene in my head. So I was imagining that, you're in this village and all of a sudden there's a gorilla that walks into a funeral. Like, what's going to happen? People are going to scramble and it's going to go crazy. And, it would be an absolute just crap show of people scrambling to get away from it and people running to capture it. And it would be crazy,
Yeah.
So that helped for me, that scene, a lot. Because, in this situation, that's exactly how it is. It's flipped. The human is essentially a gorilla loose in society, and everyone's flipping out, and so I found it amusing, although it was a little overlong, for sure.
Yeah, I think it worked. It was effective. I just think it was a little long, and then the ways he was able to escape near capture was kind of ridiculous.
It's also really one of the only action sequences in the entire movie, so it could be that they added a little extra just to try to make it a little more exciting.
Yeah. So speaking of the reversal of roles, did you feel like this worked? Like so as we've said already, we're several thousand years in the future. Earth has become a desolate wasteland, and humans have reverted back to sort of the ape role or the monkey role, and the apes have been promoted to the human role. So they can speak, they can reason, they have beliefs, they have a civilization. Humans are now mute, and they live out in the wilderness, and they kind of have these, I guess they travel in packs or something. You feel like that all was effective and worked well?
Yeah, I thought it was an absolutely brilliant idea. And I think somebody probably had that idea, and this whole film was just an excuse to explore it. It's super interesting to me from the beginning to the end. I thought it was interesting, minus the whole beginning, which I just am cutting from the whole movie. But yeah, that dynamic I thought was super interesting. Thinking of what would it be like if you were an intelligent human in a world like that, and in particular with a throat injury, so you can't talk. You're trying to write, but all these idiot other humans are just like and pooping on whatever you're writing and being ornery. I thought it was great. Yeah, I think it's a wonderful idea, and I think I'm probably not alone in thinking that, given the number of sequels and reboots and parodies and references that you find all through pop culture pointing to this movie, which, this was the first one. So,
Yeah. I agree. I liked it too.
I will say, sorry, I was going to say, like, you can understand the apes taking over through, like, just they continue to evolve, right? And so they've gone to this point. It's a little weird that they picked up English as their main language, but 60 sci-fi, we're just rolling with it. What wasn't really explained is why humans are dumb now. So you had the evolution of the apes, but then you had the de-evolution of humans, and that's not really explained. Again, I think it's just somebody had the idea, what if there was a place where apes were humans and humans were apes? And so don't worry about that. But, in premise, if you're really thinking through how this could have happened and what's going on, that's the one thing that kind of sticks with me, is that how did humans go from being smart to being absolutely dumb? And, a big nuclear apocalyptic war doesn't really work as an explanation for me. I think that would just make people smarter, honestly. So...
The only thing I can think of is maybe over thousands of years, and if the apes were able to evolve to a point where they dominated, then they could oppress the humans to the point where they just aren't able to keep up with their education, and they have to... Survival is the only thing they're worried about. Mm-hmm. And so the generations, they get to a point where they've kind of reverted into a caveman-like state or something.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. But then also, at the same time, like in a situation like that, as humans, language would be a very critical ability.
Yeah.
Right? And I just don't see us losing that, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
at the very least, they could speak. So that did never make sense.
But I give you that. I mean, that makes a little bit of sense. If they're just driven to the brink, and I mean, who knows? It's been thousands of years, so who knows what could have happened to have caused that.
Mm-hmm. So this movie, I didn't know this until watching recently, and they have it in the credit. Do they have it in the credits? But basically, this is based on a novel by a French author, Pierre Boulet or Boule.
Boulet?
Boulet? Robert Boulet.
Pierre Boulet.
And the book is it's known as Planet of the Apes, but in French it's La Planète des Singes. I don't know how to speak French. So.
It was a good try. La Planète des Singes? Is that what you said?
That's what it... Yep, that's correct. Oui. But I think it sort of follows the same premise, even a lot of the same characters. But anyway.
Yeah, I had no idea this was based on the book, so that's cool.
Yeah. 1963, and then 1968 the movie came out. So what I'd like about this whole reversal is that nothing's changed really. Mm-hmm. It's just a new race is on top, and the other race is on the bottom. Like, we still have the same problems that we had when humans were ruling.
I'm gonna jump in here. It's species.
Okay.
It's species.
Sorry, species.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. But yeah, for sure. Like, Charlton Heston, especially, like, he's this jaded character. He's apparently this antisocial guy. He wants to get away from humans. He wants to find a species that is better than humans. And he even says in the movie, he's like, surely there has to be someone out there that's better than humans. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of his reason for continuing on. And of course, as we go through the movie, we realize, well, maybe there isn't. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's always the same, but...
Yeah, it was very interesting seeing the civilization that had come up from the apes. You know, in many ways they were very similar. They had a lot of repression of scientific knowledge through religious organizations. I don't want to
Yep.
get too political with that, but we all know that that happens.
Hmm.
But we also found out that that knowledge suppression, while it was being used, the Church of the Apes was being used as a tool to suppress it. It wasn't a religious reason that it was being suppressed. It was like they, I don't know, it was a little confusing as to the reasoning there, but Dr. Zayas explains it at the end. He's like, he knew that humans were
Hmm.
first and that apes were on top of it, and he wants to keep that information from being out. I guess he's afraid it would break society to know that.
Yeah.
Or maybe the apes would just slaughter all the humans if they knew that, you know.
Yeah.
It wasn't made entirely clear, but I do feel like his reason for suppressing that wasn't religious. I feel like he was doing it because, kind of like the whole "if aliens are living here now" kind of thing. You know, people would panic and it would be awful, and we can't let this information get out. So he's covering that up for that reason, not because of religious pressure or him being Puritan in
Yeah.
his thinking.
Yeah. I like that idea of uh, comparing it to aliens because that makes the most sense. Like, if aliens came down and we realized they were real today, everything would change. Like, religion would change, society would change, everything about the way we think and do things would probably change. And so that was his fear, is that if all of the apes know that humans came first and they had a thriving society for thousands of years and then they were wiped out, that changes the way the apes think and the way they go through life. And it's pretty interesting.
I will give them props for this. It did seem, which we only had a small kind of micro glimpse into their culture and society, but it did seem like they had created a pretty peaceful society, which I thought was interesting. Originally, when this film was going to be made and it was in the idea phase and they were setting everything up, the ape planet was supposed to be very advanced, like further than humans are now. They were supposed to be in flying cars and living in super futuristic homes and have all this technology and fanciness with their way of life, very Jetsons, so to speak. And they had to cut that because the budget just they couldn't do it. In '67, in order to do something like that, it would have been just way too much. And as it was, I think they spent $500,000 just on makeup. So they didn't have the budget for it. So they decided to take the futuristic society and make it more primitive, but still modern, which I think they did a really good job of doing that, and I think it was probably a good call.
Yeah.
But it does make me very curious to think about and to consider what it would have been like if, Taylor had gone into that society instead of this, more primitive one that he did.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they would have had to have changed a lot, I think, which sort of leads me to my nitpick about how he was captured and why he couldn't speak. And
so is this the decision you were talking about in your review?
yes.
Okay, all right. I can't wait. Let's hear it.
Okay. So Taylor gets captured. He gets shot in the neck by a rifle. Right here. Right here. Kind of right here.
Now, let me stop you real quick, because this wasn't clear to me. Was it a rifle or was it like a tranq dart?
I think it was he was bleeding, so I assumed it was at the very least, it was like a flesh wound. But I think he was shot.
Okay, I'm going with rifle. I didn't know. It wasn't clear to me which one it was. Okay, please continue.
To be fair, I don't know either, but I thought it was a rifle, an actual gun. So he gets shot. They tie him up and they take him to their civilization, their town or whatever. And because he got shot in the neck, he can't speak. He literally cannot. He tries. He can, he tries to mouth the words. He can't speak. So I don't understand. I don't get it. Like, unless he was shot actually in the vocal cords, he should have been able to speak.
Maybe, and I'm just throwing something out here because I'm not a doctor and I know absolutely nothing about how this would actually work. But maybe it was swollen. Like where he was injured was swollen, and that was putting pressure on his vocal cords. I don't know.
Sure.
I'm with you though. It didn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like a very serious wound.
The only reason it bothers me so much is because a lot hinges on that fact. Like, if he can speak, the movie progresses a lot quicker.
That's true.
Because when he's captured, they assume he's one of the other primitive humans. And Zira is the only one that is like, oh, he's special. Because he's actually trying to imitate, he's trying to mouth the movements and all that.
And that was, that was kind of weird too. Because, in that scene where he's like, he's doing his little talking, miming thing, they're all like, I think he's trying to talk. Look at that. But then, they'll say, like, I think he's trying to talk. And he'll look at him and be like, yes. Like, nodding yes. And they're like, are you happy in there? And he's responding to what they're saying in a way that indicates he understands. And I was surprised that they didn't pick up on that.
Mm-hmm. Especially, there was a moment where Zira takes him to Cornelius's office or whatever, and they figure out he can write, so he's writing, and he's like, "Do you have a map?" And they go, and he starts miming and pantomiming stuff, and Zira's with it. She's like, "Oh," and you say, "Walk across for 3 days." You went,
yeah, I noticed that part. You're right on that. That was a little
professional pantomime.
She was an animal scientist, maybe.
But anyway, because it was so important that he not speak, that's why it bothered me so much, because they didn't explain what it was, they didn't explain how or why he couldn't talk. And then, of course, when he's escaping, all of a sudden he yells.
Yeah, good timing on that one, huh?
Yeah.
So yeah, for those of you who haven't seen the film, what winds up happening is he's captured and he starts building kind of a friendship with Zira, Dr. Zira, who's a ape doctor of animals, and has him captive. And he can't talk, but he steals her notepad. He gets a beating for it, but he's able to write, my name is Taylor. And she reads that and realizes that he's actually pretty intelligent. Dr. Zaius, he knows too, because they've already captured one of his friends and found out that one of them could talk. And what they did with that guy was essentially lobotomize him, only much worse. They did brain surgery, and they basically just ripped out chunks of his brain until he was just a zombie. Dr. Zaius knows that Taylor's smart, and so does Dr. Zira. Dr. Zaius, in the society that they're in, is of higher rank. And so he pulls kind of a trump card and says... gives an order to have him gelded, basically. And so they come to get him, and in a fairly humorous scene, they come to get him. And he throws a fit and winds up escaping, because he's like, nope, you're not cutting my boys. And he takes off fleeing, and that's when the whole thing goes down. When he's running around the ape village, and they're chasing him, and you can almost hear Benny Hill music playing.
That's a good idea.
They finally catch him with a really amazing maneuver, I might add, because they're bumbling all over the place, like John was saying, throwing nets and missing, shooting and missing. All of a sudden, like 3 apes are on top of a big arch with a net and ropes on pulleys, and when he walks over them, they just jump off and like pull the net up. And I was like, whoa, okay, you guys were ready for that move. I got you. You're serious now. But he gets caught in the net, and that's when he's like, get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape. And the whole crowd is just like, oh. Because, it would be like if a gorilla looked at you and said, get your hands off me, you stupid human. It would be like, what?
You hairless, stinking human. Oh yeah, so Charlton Heston's performance, like, I don't know if he was told to do this or what, but he is just Looney Tunes in this. Like,
So,
it.
yeah, he's nuts. It's a little odd.
I think it's awesome, but I don't know where it came from. Probably the fact that, well, I don't know. They all should have been a little insane if it was due to the extreme travel
But
from
I
Earth
mean,
to or through time or whatever.
this dude is nuts from minute one of the movie. Like, his opening monologue is nuts. And then they land, and he's like, hey, everything you ever knew and loved is 3,000 years gone. Let's go. You'll be better off just accepting it and moving forward. And I'm just like, that's an odd reaction to that, you know?
I love when Landon plants that mini flag, and that's if you're watching this GIF right here where he's laughing, that's his reaction to Landon's flag is him laughing like that, and he's just this maniacal, insane laugh. He can't stop laughing, and it's like.
But see, he has moments of clarity where he makes sense, and like he talks and he reasons and he's reasonable. But then he has these other moments where he's just, like you're saying, he's just absolutely Looney Tunes insane, and he just flips and goes nuts. Maybe he was trying to make a statement about human nature and emotional control. Beings, basically saying that humans are creatures driven by emotion a lot of times, more so than logic, and which is kind of a theme. It's why humans blew themselves up, and why Dr. Zayas is so afraid of Taylor, or Bright Eyes, or whatever you want to call him. Yeah. So it could be that, but still, it was a little odd.
I kind of got where he was coming from, because you get the sense that, like we said, Taylor's goal, the reason he's on this mission, is to find a species better than what humans were. Mm-hmm. So and they mention explicitly, they say he's antisocial. And so him talking to Landon and saying, your whole family's dead, dude. Like, it's been 3,000 years. They're long gone. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just a fact. I mean, he's not saying anything that's untrue. Like, he's just trying to tell the guy, like, there's no reason to even think about them because you can't save them. They're dead. And I love that part, actually. That's one of my favorite scenes of the movie is when he's talking to Landon. But
so I thought it was absolutely nuts. But, yeah, I mean, I get it. And I didn't really catch the part where he was antisocial, I guess. But, yeah. I liked him a lot better when he was lucid. I guess I'll put it that way. When he was in the trial and he was trying to raise a defense and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Which, that's something I wanted to bring up that I thought was interesting. Okay. Because, he's in there and he's talking to Zira, and he talks about flight, and he's trying to convince him that he actually came from a spaceship, and they're not buying it. And he says, flight's possible. And then he makes a paper airplane, and he throws it, and they're all astonished. And, at the part where they were like, we're going to take you and geld you, and then we're going to do brain surgery on you and make you a living dead person. Like, it's obvious at that point that he has some technical knowledge that he could share, and they're like, he's not capable of reason. And, of course, they're drilling him with cultural questions that he can't answer instead of actual scientific questions, which, it's more of that overlapping of scientific knowledge and theology, and kind of a warning of how that works in society. But it occurred to me that, like, why not bring up the concept of flight and actually demonstrate it, or convince them to get in a boat and go to where the spaceship sank. Like, you could easily prove everything he was saying, and they were obviously willing to look into proof, because when he mentioned that he had friends and one of them had been captured, they all were like, well, let's go look, So I don't know. I was kind of confused as to why he didn't try things like that.
Yeah. Although they knew that they did agree to go see the people that were captured, but
you're right.
they lobotomized Landon, and so they knew that was a dead end. That was the way to end it.
You're absolutely right. Maybe they did believe him, and they were just like, "There's no way in heck we're going to let you prove this." You might be exactly right there. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I think the tribunal was a lot like Zaius. Like they would do anything. They were scared. They're all scared, and so they would do anything to prevent that from getting out, or anything from being revealed, I guess.
I think you're right. Yeah, that's a good catch.
Yep. That's what I do. All right. I'd like to talk about the ending, but we probably need to move to star ratings after that.
Well, all right. Let's hit it. What do you got?
All right. The ending. We got to talk about. I think we already did talk about it, but just to solidify it, we didn't really talk about Nova, but Taylor and Nova, his human companion, female companion.
Okay, the Nova thing was super weird to me.
Okay.
Was it not to you?
I mean,
if you put yourself into Taylor's shoes, essentially, it's a human who acts like an ape. And you fall in love with her. It's a little... It's a little weird. You know what I mean?
Same species, though. Or
Yeah, but... I don't know. I got a weird vibe from that whole Nova thing. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
An interesting fact about that, which should probably be in Did You Know? But Nova was actually pregnant during that movie's shooting.
Really?
She didn't start showing until towards the end of the movie. And they actually debated doctoring the screenplay to have her get pregnant. But they decided against that. And so if you watch real close, near the end of the movie in particular, she stands in very specific poses so that you cannot see her belly.
Pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So they are on horseback. They are leaving the apes. They're going to find peace or something.
Yeah, something.
Yeah. And they come across a structure, and the camera kind of shows it in the foreground, but you can't see what it is, and it shows Charlton Heston and Nova in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets off the horse, and he exclaims, I won't do
Oh,
that.
come on. You got to give it to us.
Well, that may or may not be in the spicy words.
I see.
But it turns out he's looking at the Statue of Liberty, and it's buried. Almost all of it is buried in the ground, and he realizes that they didn't actually go from Earth to this other planet. They somehow made their way back to Earth, but 3,000 years later, and he's been on Earth the whole time.
Yeah. What a cool ending.
It's a pretty cool ending, especially if you don't know. Like, I would love to not have known about this movie. It would have really increased my enjoyment of it.
One thing I want to point out about that ending that I thought was just masterful was he sees the Statue of Liberty. He has his big kind of tantrum in the ground, and then the movie ends, and there's no music. I thought that was such a great choice. All you hear is the surf crashing up on the beach and silence as it fades to black and the credits roll. And it's giving me chills just thinking about it right now. That was such a great decision to not have any music to close that movie out.
Yeah, they did a great job with that. All right, Matt Hurdle.
Yes, sir.
What is your star rating for Planet of the Apes?
It's not a perfect movie by any means, but it's a dang good one. I liked it way more than I thought I was going to like it. With the exception of the first 10 minutes or so, I thought the movie was just great. A lot of the individual aspects of the movie were kind of average, honestly, but the acting I thought was top-notch, and that plot was, it was nice. And I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker for plot. If you listen to me, a lot of times I'll give a bad movie, or I'll give a movie a bad review, because I didn't like the plot, even when everything else was aces. So I got to keep with that theme. I'm gonna come in with this movie. I'm really struggling between an 8 and a 7, but 7. I'm gonna give it a 7. I'm really, really tempted to give it an 8, but I'm taking that 1 star off because I thought that opening sequence was just so hokey.
Gotcha. Well, I also like the movie. I think what brings it down for me is just some of the stuff that really shows its age, like the action sequences, some of the makeup or prosthetics, whatever. And then I thought the movie had a lot of padding. Like, it could have probably taken maybe 20 minutes off the movie, and it still would have been effective, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But other than that, I agree. The plot and the concept, the idea, the messages around the movie are awesome. Charlton Heston just delivers on the acting job. Everybody else does a pretty decent job. There were a few wasted parts, like Burton. We didn't even talk about him. The other astronaut, and Nova, like, she did what she was supposed to do, but maybe she could have done more.
I do want to say, and I'm sorry to jump in here, but you mentioning Burton, the scene where he's hiding in the museum and you see Burton stuffed and in the exhibit was chilling.
Creepy.
Chilling. That was a great touch, I thought.
That was his best scene, and he was dead.
Also, a little homoeroticism in the opening when they're all naked and bending down in front of each other. That was a little odd, but
Oh yeah, we didn't mention the naked swimming scene either. Anyway,
I mean, like, literally, you see two of the guys standing up. They're all standing up. Two of them are kind of facing away from the camera, and one is facing towards. And then the guy that's facing towards the camera just kind of slowly goes down to the bottom of the frame while the other two guys are standing, and you're just like, what's going on here? But it is
accidental. Jerry Goldsmith. I actually liked it was almost cacophonous, the score, and it made sense where it was. Like, they're in space is foreign, you're gonna have some foreign music, and when they were careening into the planet, like, it's just a twirling camera, like, down space.
That was such a weird. It was so weird, just flipping around. And then the other music is just someone banging on a piano while some other person's playing with a theremin over in the corner. And yeah.
Pretty crazy. But, so, all that said, I think I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Because I didn't like it as much as you did. And so...
You know what? Never mind. I was going to say move it to an 8, but no, I'm sticking at a 7.
Okay. You're committed now.
I'm committed. Write it down.
Pot committed. I already did.
Stamp it.
Erase.
Send it.
That's a pen. I can't erase.
Is that a Bic?
It's a Papermate.
Thanks to Papermate for... no, I'm just playing. We don't have sponsors. Who am I kidding?
We do have a sponsor. Anchor.fm.
Oh, that's right.
Podcast.
Anchor FM. So easy to use.
So easy to use. Even an ape can use it.
A damn dirty ape.
A damn dirty ape. Okay. Time for some Spice Awards.
Wah!
We have 5 categories. Best Actor, Most Underrated Performance, Favorite Heston Quote, best scene and favorite ape. Best actor, Matt.
Moi? I had a really hard time with this one. I liked all the acting. I felt like our two main good guy apes, I guess you would say, Cornelius and Zira, were amazing. Charlton Heston's character was wacky noo, but the acting was on like amazing. He acted it great.
Yeah.
Everybody was great. So I had a really hard time picking one, but I ultimately settled on Maurice Evans, who played Dr. Zaius. He gets the nod to me because he played a really complex character, and he did it through all this full makeup. His expressions were always thoughtful and on point. I felt like his dialogue was really well delivered, and every scene he was in, I really was just focusing on him, honestly, because I thought he was amazing. So while I had to debate this really hard, because seriously, I thought everybody did great. If I've got to pick one person, I've got to give it to Mr. Evans for his Dr. Zaius.
Yep. I agree. He had a very hard job to be the scared, religious, scientific leader of the apes, but also kind of have sort of an evil flair about him, but you can sort of see where he's coming from. Like, it was complex.
It was, Zira was really close.
Yeah,
she also did amazing. That was Kim Hunter in the role of Zira, and man, she knocked it out of the park too.
I went with Charlton Heston as George Taylor. Surprise.
It is a choice, and I don't mean that in the negative way that we usually mean it. He did phenomenal. He did phenomenally. Yeah. I can't argue with it.
Yeah, I mean, as Looney Tunes as he was, it's Charlton Heston. I mean, the guy just knows how to act, and everything he does is engaging and interesting. The scenes where he's screaming, "It's a madhouse! It's a madhouse!"
Dude, that scene. Oh,
while he's being pelted with water, it's like, where did that come from?
I don't know.
But he makes it work. He
does.
And there's so many lines, and we'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, he's just a really good character, fun to watch, and I guess sort of he does have an arc. We just talked about he's antisocial. He's looking for a species. He's jaded with humans, and then he turns around and he meets Nova, and he's like, I do value companionship.
Well, I like you because you don't talk. You do everything I say.
Look at that. I taught you to smile.
It's like, I don't know, Mr. Taylor.
Let's spoon. Anyway, my pick for best actor, Charlton Heston as George Taylor. Matt's pick was Maurice Evans as Dr. Zaius. Dr. Zaius.
You're gonna have to play that clip.
Yeah. Most underrated performance.
So I think I'm going to surprise you with this one.
Okay.
I wanted to stay true to the category and actually go underrated, as opposed to doing, another best actor. So someone who I thought did a great job but didn't necessarily get a whole lot of attention. And that, you're going to have a real hard time doing a clip of this one, was Linda Harrison as Nova. Because she never says a word.
I probably won't do a clip. But...
that
was my pick too, so...
Oh, nice. Excellent. I thought I'd be surprising you with that one. If you think about it, that's probably not an easy role to play. Because you can't talk, and you're a human that has an ape's persona or mind, but not really, because you're not an ape. You're a devolved human And then you
Right.
see a ape that or a human that can talk. Like, I don't know. I don't even know how you would get into the mindset of that character. But I thought she did a really great job of doing exactly that.
Yeah. No, I think I agree with you. I think she does a similar thing that the apes do, but just without the prosthetics. Like she shows
Hmm.
a lot of emotion in her face, and I think it was done well. She doesn't have actually a lot of screen time, but her part is essential because she makes Taylor realize that he does want interaction. He does want someone
Hmm.
to be with, as creepy as it is.
There's a lot of bewilderment that she had to portray, and she had to do that
Yeah,
really with only her eyes because the role is 100% mute. She never says a word.
yep. And she sort of has to convey this. She does have an affection for Charlton Heston, but she also has to realize, act that she doesn't really know what that is because their version of affection is different than his, and
Well, they're
it's
animals.
a
I mean,
yeah,
think of gorillas or chimpanzees or orangutans mating. I mean, that's her experience.
yeah, yeah. So I'm fully behind that pick.
I didn't. I'd say I'm the one that wound up surprised because I didn't think you would possibly pick her for that.
And she was pregnant.
She was.
All right, most underrated performance, Nova, played by Linda Harrison. All right, this one should be fun. Favorite Heston quote.
So I feel like you kind of tied my hands on this one because I'm going to be honest with you. Most of my favorite quotes weren't Heston quotes. They were quotes from other characters.
Really?
That's
Okay.
But the category says best Heston quote. And so I went with the line that I knew before I'd even seen this movie, the line that everybody knows, and the line that we've already said probably 4 times on this podcast so far. Get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty apes! It's such an iconic line. How can I not choose that one?
Uh,
I mean, it's
Well,
one of
it's
the
even
best
better
lines of
when-
all time.
it's even better when you see it happen. It's great. And he can't speak, and so it's the first thing he says after he can finally speak.
Hmm.
Pretty great. Well, by the way, what was your favorite quote overall? Do you have that handy?
Um, I had a bunch that I liked. Let me pull this up. Real quick.
I'll do my quote and then you can look.
Okay.
All right. So my favorite Heston quote was the very end when he sees the Statue of Liberty, and he says he gets off his horse.
Now
he
you
gets
gotta act this. You gotta act this
Okay.
out. Okay.
He gets on the ground or kneels on the ground. And he says, "I'll do my best, Charlton Heston." Oh my God, I'm back. I'm home. All the time. We finally really did it. You maniacs! You blew it up! Ah, damn you! God damn you to hell!
I just want to go on record as saying, Mr. Murphy, that you do a much better Charlton Heston than you do Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm pretty sure that was Sylvester Stallone.
Oh God! Yeah, we aren't professional impersonators.
I think that was your best quote delivery so far in the entire history of CinemaMen, though. I got to give you props for that one.
Well, it helps that one of my favorite quotes of all time is from Charlton Heston. He has a cameo on the TV show Friends, and Joey Tribbiani from the show, he's acting in a thing with him, and he goes into Charlton Heston's dressing room or something, and he takes a shower, and Charlton Heston catches him, and he goes, "Put some pants on, kid, so I can kick your butt."
Amazing.
So anyway,
What an artist.
yeah, that's my pick. Did you find your quote?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
And I wanted to look it up because I wanted to make sure I got it right. But it's at the end when Dr. Zayas is talking to Taylor, and he admits that he knew about humans. And he basically says, "You're right. I've always known about man. From the evidence, I believe his wisdom must walk hand in hand with his idiocy. His emotions must rule his brain. He must be a warlike creature who gives battle to everything around him, even himself." Man, when he said that, I was like, "Ooh, you're hitting home with that one, Doctor Zayas." Like,
It's powerful, yeah.
Hitting us
Powerful quote.
with the bluntness there. I was like, "Eesh." That was my favorite quote from the movie.
Excellent. All right. My favorite Heston quote was at the end, and Matt's favorite quote was the iconic "Damn dirty apes" quote. Best scene. Your best scene?
So I went a little goofy with this one because
Okay.
this was the one scene that made me laugh, and I mean it actually made me laugh. It was pretty funny to me, and it doesn't really fit in the movie, but I couldn't help it. I just loved this scene, and that's the scene where they come to get Nova. They come to get Nova out of the cage and move her to the other cage, and to do that, this I guess he's a chimpanzee comes in and turns a fire hose on Taylor and just hoses him down while they get Nova out and move her to the other cage. And I laughed so hard at this scene because the chimpanzee that's doing it goes full ape. Like, he is having the time of his life blasting Bright Eyes or Taylor with this water hose. He's just bouncing up and down like he just. And Charleston is just getting blasted with water and he can barely move. And then when it's all over, he's just like, "This is a madhouse! A madhouse!" And it was just, it was ridiculous. And I'm a sucker for ridiculous scenes. It wasn't powerful. I don't think it had any particular meaning other than maybe to show that not all of the apes are as intellectual as Dr. Zaus and Dr. Zira. But, man, that ape just looked so goofy and was having so much fun just blasting him with that water hose that I just, I don't know. I loved it.
I laughed out loud as well. It was so funny. I think the ape even makes ape noises, and that's the only time we hear that.
Yeah.
From the apes. Yeah, that's a good pick. So I sort of mentioned this already as my favorite scene, but when they have landed on the planet and they're walking, there's a scene where Taylor and Landon have a extended conversation, and he's basically telling Landon that your family's dead. There's nothing you can do. And that's the scene where Landon plants that mini USA flag and Taylor just starts laughing uncontrollably. Like, it's a pretty interesting scene.
I cannot believe that's your pick.
Enthralled. Yeah, that's my favorite.
I can't believe it. I thought that scene was so goofy.
I tell you what, it's the point at which I was. That's the point at which I was engrossed in the movie. Like, before that, everything was fine, but him making that speech about how far in the future they are, 2,000 years in the future, the realization that everybody's gone. They talked. He asked Landon why he joined the expedition, and then he proceeds to tell Landon why he joined the expedition for recognition and for fame or whatever. He's like, you probably have a statue of yourself somewhere, but it's long gone and torn down by now or whatever. I thought it was good.
Yeah.
All right.
Last
Best scene.
category.
Yep. Matt's best scene was the water hose scene, and my best scene was when Taylor and Landon are talking at the beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite ape.
So for me, I didn't. This one wasn't too hard for me. If I'm just going from the likability of the apes that I ran across, I have to go with Lucius. It's not clear if he's an assistant or if he's Dr. Zira's son or nephew or something like that. But man, I liked that guy. He's like a D&D rogue on like a level 1 or 2 D&D rogue ape. Because he's the one who breaks out Nova and Bright Eyes or Taylor, and he's just, I don't know. It's interesting. I liked him so much because it shows that the youth of this ape society are very similar to the youth of human society. You know, they're fed up with all these old rules and traditions and establishment precedents that they can't seem to break free of, and they don't know why. You know, they're excited about the future, and there's all these ideas and things they want to try and do and change, and they can't because the society is just like, no, this is the way it's been, this is the way it will be. And he's frustrated with that. And there was another one of my favorite quotes that involved him in Charleston, where basically Taylor looks at Lucius and is like, don't ever trust anyone older than 30. And it says it with kind of a little smile. And I thought, that's cool. So yeah, his acting honestly was probably the worst of all of the actors. I felt like his acting wasn't that great, but I loved the character anyway. And if we ever get to the sequels, I'm hoping he's in them, but I don't know if he will be or not.
We will get to those at some point. There's also a scene with him and Charlton where so this is another ridiculous point, but they come out of cryostasis after thousands of years, and they have the most neatly trimmed beards of any men I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, they have beards throughout the whole movie, and at the end, Charlton takes a knife and he's shaving on the beach, and Lucius comes up to him and is like, "Why are you doing that?" And Charlton goes, "Only kids your age wore beards where I'm from."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, so in the 60s, in the late 60s, it was not fashionable for older gentlemen to wear beards? I didn't know that.
I thought it was funny, though. One of them then looks at him and says, I think you look less intelligent without it. And he just kind of looks at him and goes on. That would be weird, though. Can you imagine, like I kept doing this watching the film. I kept reversing it and like saying, okay, we'll say a chimpanzee started talking and acting like a man, and how would, what would that be like? And, how would that be if, a chimpanzee just sat down and started like shaving its arms, and you're just like, what? And he's just like,
why are you doing that?
It's just how we do it. It's a custom that we've never questioned. And, I don't know, that was constant amusement for me during this movie, was thinking that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is interesting. So I picked Zira, who was played by Kim Hunter. I just liked her because she was the level-headed one who she represented reason and goodness in the apes. She didn't automatically become fearful. She didn't try to figure out another reason why Taylor would be able to talk or reason. She actually wanted to find the truth and figure it out. And then, of course, eventually she became a good companion for Taylor, a friend, and helped him escape the apes. And I thought she did a fantastic job. As we mentioned, she did a really good job acting behind prosthetics and makeup.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave her my favorite ape nomination.
It's a very excellent choice. Like I said, I really had a hard time not choosing her for Best Actor. But yeah, she was amazing. 100% agree with that choice.
Yeah, and she has a memorable line at the end. Taylor says, I feel like I need to kiss you. And
Oh,
so
yeah. That was
she
weird.
goes,
I gotta kiss you goodbye.
she goes, all right, but you're so damned ugly.
She delivered that line a little weird, too, I thought. But it was a good line.
Yeah. Okay. Favorite ape. My pick was Zira, played by Kim Hunter. Matt's pick was Lucius, who was played by Lou Wagner. Hey, Matt.
Hey, John.
Did you know? During the breaks in filming, actors who were made up as different ape species tended to hang out together. Gorillas with gorillas, orangutans with orangutans, chimps with chimps. It just happened.
You know, I have a theory about that.
Okay.
My theory is that it's not as profound of a psychological phenomenon as people pretend it is. I think what happened, and I have no basis to this, this is entirely me just thinking maybe this is what happened. I bet when they did the orangutans, all of the orangutans went and did their makeup at the same time and were sitting in the chair talking. And then the same for the chimps and the same for the gorillas. And I think, this is a theory, there's no basis for this other than this is just me thinking about it. But I think that's what happened. They started talking, and so they made friends with the people they were in makeup with for 2 hours, 3 hours every day. And so they hung out at lunch, obviously.
I get that. That makes sense.
But again, 100% theory. No, I have nothing to back that up with. It's just me thinking maybe that's what happened. So here's an interesting one. Charlton Heston, throughout most of this movie, was sick with the flu. They considered pausing filming and waiting for him to recover, but they felt that the way he looked kind of weak and pallid, and the way his voice was kind of hoarse and strained, fit the narrative of the movie so well that they went ahead and had him act while he was sick with the flu. He said that he has a diary out, and apparently he said that after filming the scene where Taylor and Nova were separated, which is the scene that I liked with the water hose, so he was getting blasted with the water hose while he was sick with the flu, the poor bastard. He said that he was feeling like hell because he was so sick, and he felt even worse every time the fire hose hit him, which I have no doubt that he did.
Man. Some actors are better men than us.
I can't imagine doing that with the flu, dude.
Yeah. If you recall our Big Trouble in Little China review, Kurt Russell also had the flu when he was filming that movie.
I can't.
And I remember during the review, I was like, I would just call in sick. Like, push the filming, like, by a week.
I agree.
But I guess you're relying on, or other people rely on you, so. Allegedly, Jerry Goldsmith, the composer of this film, wore a gorilla mask while writing and conducting the score to get better in touch with the movie.
Mm-hmm.
He also used a ram's horn in the process, which resulted in the first completely atonal score in a Hollywood movie. Atonal means not written in any key or mode.
Which is why it sounds so chaotic. Makes sense.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense.
So the role of Zira, which we loved, both of us, was initially offered to famous actress Ingrid Bergman. And she turned it down. And she said after the movie came out, and this movie was a massive success, by the way. I think the budget was like $5 million, and it made hundreds of millions of dollars. Let's see if I can find the number. Maybe it's here. I should have this written down, you know.
If you're looking for box office.
Yeah, I'm looking for... Oh, there it is. It grossed $35 million. So a budget, we'll round it up to $6 million. So they had a $6 million budget, and they grossed just in the United States over $32 million. So massive success commercially.
Yep, that's pretty good. Pretty good take.
After she found out that it was such a success, she said that it was one of the biggest regrets of her career that she turned that role down. And I think she'd have been awesome in it, personally. But I feel like we got lucky with Kim Hunter because she was incredible. I'm glad she got the role.
Yep. In the scene at the Ape Natural History Museum, there is a large claw of a strange animal. It's displayed several times on a pedestal at the top of the stairs. That is the plaster cast mold made of the foot of the monster that attacks the spaceship in Forbidden Planet in the 1956 movie.
Oh, that's super cool. I didn't know that.
That's really cool.
Forbidden Planet, one of Leslie Nielsen's iconic roles, back when he was a dramatic actor.
Yes. Great movie. If I'm not mistaken, that was a CinemaMen movie pre-podcast?
I think so. Yeah, back before we were doing a podcast and we were just watching movies for fun. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which we did that, by the way. I don't think we've mentioned that on the podcast before. But before this was a podcast, we used to do this just for fun. Which I guess we still do it just for fun. We just record it so maybe other people will like it too.
That's right.
Please give us money. What? I'm just teasing. Please just listen. That's really all we care about.
Listen.
Here's a neat one. So all of the makeup and prosthetics that had to be put on the actors, and this is all of the apes, so extras, actors, most of the people in this movie, honestly, it's not something you can just put on and take off. You know, it takes a lot of work to put that makeup on. And as a result, they couldn't take these masks off when they ate. So, you're filming all day, you get hungry, you get thirsty, especially in some of these desert scenes, which were shot mostly in Arizona, in brutal heat. You've got to drink. And so what they wound up doing was all of the meals that were fed to the cast were liquefied and had to be eaten and drank through a straw. So I don't know how they did that. Maybe, if we're having meatloaf today, you toss it in a blender with some water and stir it up and have fun, apes. But, ugh. They earned their money there.
I take your straw and I drink it up. A little tidbit here. The opening scene set on the space rocket was actually the very last scene to be filmed, as Charlton Heston had already shaven his beard off towards the climax of the film. So he didn't not shave, then grow a beard, and then shave. He had his beard shaved and then filmed the rocket scene.
Interesting. So where was the one I was about to... Oh, yeah, here we go. So this movie was one of the first movies ever made that had a large-scale merchandise set up with it. With Planet of the Apes, you had all kinds of stuff. You had toys. You had collectible memorabilia items. You had lunch boxes. It even had a TV show for a while. There were comic books, trading cards, books, records, all kinds of stuff marketed with this movie. And this is one of the very first movies that actually had a campaign like that accompany it. In the 80s, this would become a very familiar concept. But in 1967, this was pretty novel.
Love it. Rod Serling admitted that he spent well over a year and 30 or 40 drafts trying to translate the novel to the screen. That's quite a bit of work.
So this movie, if you didn't know, is rated G. which is interesting given some of the more mature themes that it presents.
Damn dirty apes.
And it was the 60s. G's were different in the 60s. If you don't believe us, watch this movie. But this is one of only 2 G-rated movies ever created that actually has nudity in it. And granted, the nudity is brief. You just see, I think, some butts. You see the men's butts when they're naked swimming.
There's some peen.
Oh, I didn't notice that. You were looking closer than me for the peen.
I was trying to look real hard.
Well, I'm glad to know. I'm glad to know that it was there.
It was there.
But do you... well, you wouldn't know this because I've never even heard of this movie. The only other movie that has nudity in it and is rated G is a movie called The Bible in the Beginning, which came out in 1966.
Well, that's my favorite movie.
The Bible in the Beginning? I've never even heard of it.
I haven't either.
So you mentioned the Rod Serling and the Twilight Zone similarities.
Mm-hmm.
This movie was originally going to be a Twilight Zone spin-off movie. It was actually going to be called like The Twilight Zone, Planet of the Apes, or something like that. So the similarities that we detected were probably more than just a coincidence. I suspect they were intentional.
Sure. You have any more?
This movie was released the day before Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated.
Wow.
It's not necessarily a movie fact, but an interesting historical fact.
I did want to mention that on Rotten Tomatoes, this movie has an 86% tomato meter score out of 59 reviews, critic reviews. It has an 87% audience score with 100,000 plus ratings. So, pretty solid.
For sure. Here's an interesting one for you. Dr. Zaius. There were several people considered for that role, aside from the man who actually got the role, who was my favorite actor. I'm not going to read all of them, but there are 2 names on here, or 3. There's 3 names on here I'm going to read in particular. One is Laurence Olivier. One is Orson Welles. And the other one is one that I'm really intrigued by and I can't stop thinking about. And that is Alec Guinness.
Oh.
I think he would have been amazing in that role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all 3. I mean, those are some pretty high caliber actors. And to be fair, I don't know Maurice Evans' name. Like, maybe I've seen him in other things, but I know all 3 of those other guys' names.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad we got Maurice Evans because he was phenomenal. You know, I picked him as my favorite actor. I thought he was the best actor in the film. So I'm glad that he got the role. But I can't help imagining Alec Guinness doing this.
Maybe the force be with you, apes. Are you spent?
The famous line, "Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape," was not the way it was written in the script. I don't know if it was ad-libbed or if it was talked about and changed, but the original line was, "Stand back, you bloody ape," which doesn't quite have the kick as the one that they used.
That's got to be Heston. He's got to. Surely he improvised that.
I hope so. Another one I wanted to add in because I thought this was interesting. You know, the humans are supposed to be essentially apes in this movie in terms of our society today. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was odd that they wore clothes. You know, and I get why they had clothes on because, you know, it was a G-rated movie. You can't have just a bunch of naked people on screen all the time. But I thought that was an interesting decision. I was like, you know, really, if this was, you know, how it really was, I would expect them to be running around naked, you know. And the filming, or I guess the production team agreed with that. They should have been naked. But as I guess we all know, they had to put clothes on them. Otherwise, they couldn't have released the movie.
Yeah. You know, there's a point where I think it's Dr. Zayas. He comments that Taylor keeps trying to put his clothes on. He's like, look at him. He's trying to put garb around his body or something. So I wonder if they just missed that because every one of the humans had clothes on. So.
The ending in the movie is different from the ending in the book. I'm not going to spoil the ending of the book because we're a movie spoiler podcast, not a book spoiler podcast.
We only spoil certain things.
When they decided to put the Statue of Liberty in, the original author was not a fan. However, as time passed, he grew to like that more and more and now likes it better than his original ending.
Nice.
One more thing I'll put in, and then I'll be done. Your favorite line when Charlton Heston rants about what humans have done to the earth.
Yes.
He felt like he had to say it, and he fought to say that line, but that's not how it was originally written either. Originally, he was just supposed to see it, fall to his knees, and exclaim, "My God!" And that was going to be it. He had to really convince the censors because they didn't like him using the Lord's name in vain in the movie. And
Sure.
he explained to them that he wasn't. He was literally asking God to damn the past for doing what they did.
Oh.
And so they were like, okay, we'll let that slide. And they let him do it.
Different times.
Yep.
For sure. All right. That is our episode for tonight. Join us in 2 weeks when we will review the 1995 sci-fi adventure film Waterworld starring Kevin Costner. Oh boy.
Is it really a sci-fi adventure film?
It's definitely sci-fi.
I mean, it's kind of more of a post-apocalyptic adventure film, right? I guess you could be argued either way.
The 1995 post-apocalyptic sci-fi adventure action film Waterworld.
It's all the genres. Dramatic romance. Yeah. One thing I wanted to add before we close up.
Go ahead.
There are a few people watching us on stream because we are actually live streaming this. This is something we're doing and we're going to look to maybe start doing moving forward. Currently, we have it hosted on Twitch. However, we're probably going to be moving that as early as our very next episode to YouTube, where we have a YouTube channel. We'll make sure to get all that information out once it's all finalized and official. On our next episode, with our Get in Touch with Us, we'll have a YouTube link there as well, so you can find recordings for where we've done this live and have saved the VODs for later watching. Also, we tend to do these recording sessions every other Tuesday night. So the next planned recording that we'll be doing will be 2 weeks from today, which today is Tuesday, April 27th. So our next show will be in May on the 11th. So May 11th, around 8:30. We'll make sure that in our next episode, we'll make sure to release the YouTube links, and we'll have those on the website so you can go and find us where you can watch this VOD or any live streams or VODs of live streams moving forward with the podcast.
Mm-hmm. And as usual, if you want to subscribe to the CinemaMen podcast, you can do so on most podcast services or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. You can go to CinemaMenPodcast.com to check out new and old episodes. We have every single episode we've ever done on that website, broken up into seasons. And we always love to hear from listeners, so you can email us at feedback@cinemamenpodcast.com or check us out on Twitter at twitter.com/cinemamenpod.
I will add also,
oh, good.
With the YouTube edition now, you can also comment down below. Hit that subscribe button, shoot us a comment, we'll read those comments, so we'll take suggestions through that fashion also.
Yep, I need to add that to my notes. All right, thanks for listening.
Thanks, everybody.